There's something about older men that younger women find deeply sexy. And no, it's not about sugar daddies, money, or the predictable cliches. The truth? It's something much more subtle, something almost hidden. The attraction isn't about showing off or trying to keep up. It's about revealing certain traits, deliberately or not, that speak to a younger woman's instincts. Most older guys think they need to compete with younger men by working out harder, dressing cooler, or learning all the new slang. But that's not what works. What actually draws younger women in is the older guy who doesn't play the game at all. He rewrites it, quietly, confidently, almost without trying. That's what today's video is about. We're going deep into the 20 sexy, lesser-known traits older men use, often without realizing it, that make younger women want them. You won't hear these in the usual dating advice videos. No, be confident or show stability. These are high-signal traits that most men never notice they have until they start working like magic. Let's get into it. 1. You dress like you forgot how trendy works, and she finds it magnetic. Younger guys try hard to stay on trend. The older guy, he doesn't even seem aware there is a trend, and that's what makes him so stylish. He wears clothes that fit him, not just physically, but energetically. A perfectly aged leather jacket, boots that have seen things, a shirt with no logo, no flex, but it hangs off his shoulders just right. It doesn't scream for attention. It simply lands. Here's the secret. When a man doesn't dress to impress, but instead dresses in a way that says, "I know who I am," women feel it. Younger women especially notice when a man looks like he's not trying to impress anyone, because that's rare. It signals security. And security is sexy. She's dated guys who obsess over how they look. You dress like a man who already knows he looks good, even if nobody else gets it. And that confidence, that's what turns her on. 2. You don't explain your lifestyle. She has to earn that story. Younger women are used to guys oversharing, telling them their whole career arc, emotional history, gym routine, favorite movies, and why they're such a good guy. It's exhausting and predictable. What catches her off guard is the older guy who doesn't offer that information. You have your routines, your life, your reasons, and you don't explain them unless she's earned a place in that world. Let's say she notices you eat at the same obscure restaurant every Tuesday. Most men would launch into a whole story, but not you. You just smile and say, "Tuesday thing," and move on. That mystery, it hooks her. It invites curiosity. And suddenly she's the one wondering what your life looks like when she's not around. When you leave some things unsaid, you create a sense of depth. She doesn't feel like she has you figured out, and that makes you unforgettable. 3. You use quiet frames, and they do all the seducing for you. A quiet frame is a moment where your environment, not your words, speaks for you. It's when your home, your presence, or the way you move through a room sends a message. Imagine this. She walks into your space and there's jazz playing low, a book turned face down on the table, a half-finished espresso, and the scent of cedar wood in the air that tells her more about you than an hour of talking. The younger guy might brag about being cultured. You just are. The way you pour her a drink without asking what she wants, because you already figured out her taste. That's seductive. The way you don't break eye contact when she asks something bold. The way you sit back while others rush in. All of that creates a frame, a feeling she steps into. And once she's in your frame, she doesn't want to leave. Before we move on, some men impress with words, others with silence. If you're working on being the second kind, comment silent presence. Let's see who's committed to being the exception. 4. You pause before answering. It makes her lean in. There's a kind of electricity in the silence before you speak. When a woman asks you something, especially if it's flirty or charged, and you don't rush to answer, you create an invisible magnet between you. Most men feel pressure to fill that space. They think if they don't jump in with a clever reply, she'll lose interest. But the older man knows the power of the pause. When you pause, you do 2 things. 1, you show that you're not performing. You're considering your words, or maybe you're just letting her sit in the tension a little longer. And 2, you force her to focus. Her brain leans in to fill the silence. She watches your expression, your body language, the subtle shifts in your face. It builds suspense. It makes you unpredictable. Sexy, in this case, isn't about having the right answer. It's about making her wait for it. 5. You have surprising, almost odd rituals, and they spark her curiosity. One of the sexiest traits an older man can have is his own weird little universe. Maybe you walk barefoot every morning in the garden. Maybe you always have a single glass of red wine at 9 p.m. while listening to Miles Davis. Maybe you write poetry and burn it after. These things aren't there to impress anyone. They're for you. But when she sees them, they don't just intrigue her, they invite her in. Younger women are used to guys who mirror their world, but when she steps into your world and finds rituals that don't make sense to her yet, she gets hooked. Who is this guy? Why does he do this? Can I be part of that? These questions play in her head long after you've left the room. A man with rituals isn't boring, he's a mystery. And mystery, when combined with confidence, becomes deeply erotic. 6. You tell her what you would change about modern dating, not what she wants to hear. You're not here to pander. You're not trying to say what she wants to hear. You have your own take on modern dating, and you're not shy about it. Maybe you think texting has killed romance. Maybe you believe people jump into bed too quickly. Or maybe you're into slower connections, deeper stories, or strange courtship rules that would confuse her friends. Whatever your take, you don't soften it to fit in. You say it calmly, clearly, like someone who's seen how the game plays out, and opted out. When a younger woman hears an older man speak from that kind of grounded conviction, something switches. She may argue with you, laugh, tease you, but underneath it all, she respects it. She sees you as someone who doesn't bend to the current, and that feels rare. In a world full of yes men, you become the man she can't stop thinking about. 7. You don't chase, you curate. She feels lucky to be on your radar. There's a huge difference between chasing and curating. Younger guys chase. They flood her DMs, overthink every text, plan elaborate dates before she's even earned it. You curate. You choose carefully who gets your time, energy, and interest. And when you choose her, she feels it. You don't try to impress. You assess. You ask questions not to get close, but to see if she even fits your world. That alone flips the dynamic. It's not about winning her. It's about seeing if she measures up to your standards. The crazy part? The less you chase, the more they chase you. You create an energy that says, I'm good with or without this. And that's magnetic. Because deep down, every woman wants to feel chosen, not won over. 8. You talk about women you didn't pursue, and that flips her script. This is a quiet power move. When you casually mention that you didn't go after someone, even though she was beautiful, successful, or into you, it plants a seed in her mind. It tells her you're selective, that you've had options, that your attraction isn't just about looks or availability. You don't say it to brag. You say it like it's just a thing that happened. Maybe you say, she was gorgeous, but she didn't get my humor. Or, we had chemistry, but she didn't like books. Whatever it is, it tells this new woman in your life that you don't settle, even when you could have. And now she's wondering, what kind of woman does hold your attention? Could it be her? That question alone keeps her engaged. 9. You know when to leave, mid-laugh, mid-glance, mid-flirt. Most guys linger. They wait until things fizzle out. Not you. You leave when the energy is still high, mid-laugh, mid-glance, mid-flirt, and that exit, it haunts her. In the best way. Let's say you're at a bar talking. Everything's flowing. She's leaning in. She's clearly interested. And then you check your watch, smile, and say, I've got to run. This was fun, and leave no over-explaining. No promises, just an elegant exit. She's left with a dopamine spike and no closure. That's powerful. That's what makes her check her phone, wonder where you went, and start crafting a message before she even realizes it. When you leave early, it doesn't say you're not interested. It says you've got a full life, and that she'll have to catch up. 10. You ask strange, revealing questions, and never follow up. You don't ask surface-level stuff. You ask things that catch her off guard. What kind of trouble do you secretly wish you could get into? What's one thing you'd never tell your best friend? These aren't first date interview questions. They're little sparks of curiosity that go deeper. But here's the twist. You don't push for an answer. You let her respond how she wants. Or not at all. And then you move on. Like you weren't expecting anything, that alone makes the question echo in her mind. Most guys ask questions to get somewhere. You ask because you see beneath the surface, and you don't need her to perform. That comfort, that unpredictability, that subtle depth, it's sexy in a way that stays with her for days. 11. You have a space that feels like a mood, not a showroom. Younger guys decorate for approval. LED lights, aesthetic posters, an awkward bottle of cologne sitting out. It all screams, do you like me yet? But the older man's space feels different. It doesn't just look good. It feels like him. Dim lighting, a worn leather chair, stacks of books that weren't arranged for Instagram. Everything in the room whispers, rather than shouts. And when she walks in, she's not thinking about how Pinterest-worthy it is. She's thinking about what kind of life happens here. The scent, the soundscape, the lighting. It feels deliberate, even if it's messy. Your space becomes a sensory extension of your energy. It says you're not trying to impress, and that makes it all the more impressive. She doesn't want to leave because it's not just a space. It's a mood, and moods are addictive. 12. You've got a weirdly strong opinion on one small thing, and she loves your passion. Here's a trait that catches her completely off guard. Passion over something weirdly specific. Maybe you refuse to use digital coffee machines. Maybe you argue that vinyl just sounds better. and you're willing to demonstrate. Maybe you have a favorite pen, not brand, specific pen, and if it goes missing, your day is off. This obsession, when delivered with a calm certainty, becomes incredibly attractive. Why? Because it shows you care. It tells her you're not numb to life. You feel things, and that emotion shows through in the oddest little corners of your world. Passion is sexy, even in tiny doses, especially when it's paired with grounded older guy energy. It's not about what you're passionate about. It's about the fact that you still are, after all these years, that lights something up in her. 13. You interrupt to lower your voice. That unexpected hush, it hooks her. Most guys interrupt to dominate a conversation. They get louder, more animated. But you interrupt softly. You lean in. You drop your tone. Maybe you say her name first, Anna, and then pause. Your voice lowers, not to intimidate, but to intrigue. And suddenly the whole world gets quiet. That moment, where she has to lean in, not to be polite, but because she wants to hear you, is intimate. It creates a micro-bubble between you, a kind of shared silence only two people can hear. When your voice dips instead of rising, it signals control, not of her, of yourself. And that's what she responds to. It's not performance, it's presence. And it stays in her memory longer than anything you said. 14. You reference your own past as if it were a movie she hasn't seen yet. Younger guys relive their stories. They tell you every detail, hoping for approval or sympathy. But you talk about your past like it's a film she might discover later. You don't give everything away. You drop references. That was a Berlin chapter. Or, let's just say the 90s were strange. And then you move on. This subtle storytelling style is irresistible. It says, there's more here, but you'll have to stick around to earn the full version. It makes your history feel layered, not laid out like she's dating a man who's lived multiple lives and she's only just arrived in the latest scene. She doesn't want to know everything right away. She wants breadcrumbs, moments, teases, and you give them without even trying, because your past isn't a pitch, it's a vibe, and that's far more powerful. 15. You enjoy your own silence, even around her. This one separates men from boys. You're not afraid of silence. You don't rush to fill the air with stories or compliments or questions. You can sit beside her, in the car, on a couch, on a walk, and just be no pressure, no discomfort, just two people sharing space. This is rare. Most younger men feel the need to keep the energy up. They equate silence with boredom. But when you're at peace with your own quiet, that peace spreads to her. She starts to feel safe, grounded, seen. And then, when you do speak, every word hits harder. Because you weren't talking just to talk. You spoke because something needed to be said. That calm, centered energy, it's addictive. It makes her feel like she can finally relax, not just physically, but emotionally. 16. You call out your own red flags, and that's disarming as hell. Here's the move she never sees coming. You beat her to the punch. You say, just so you know, I'm terrible at small talk. Or, I can be emotionally slow. It's not disinterest, just my pace. Most men hide these things. You name them. But here's the twist. You don't do it as a self-deprecating apology. You do it casually, like you're describing your coffee order. Honest, neutral, grounded, and it flips a switch in her brain. Now, instead of worrying about what's wrong with you, she starts admiring your self-awareness. Even more, it builds trust. She starts thinking, if he's open about that, what else is he honest about? This kind of emotional transparency is deeply sexy, especially coming from a man who clearly isn't looking for approval. You're not performing, you're revealing, and that's rare. 17. You flirt through absurd metaphors, not pickup lines. Forget canned lines. Forget smooth. You flirt like a poet with a sense of humor. You say things like, you look like trouble dressed as dessert. Or, talking to you is like listening to jazz with a concussion. I can't tell what's happening, but I like it. These metaphors aren't about being perfect. They're about being playful, strange, and unexpectedly charming. They create a texture to your words, a rhythm. They show that you're creative and confident enough to risk sounding ridiculous. And that combination? Irresistible. Younger women are used to guys who follow scripts. You don't. You improvise. You riff. You confuse and delight. And that unpredictability makes her laugh, blush, and lean in for more. 18. You talk about your failures without bitterness, and it turns her on. There's nothing sexier than a man who can say, yeah, that didn't work out, and then laugh about it. You talk about past relationships, business ventures, creative projects, and you own the misses without shame. You don't spin them into ego stories. You just share. This kind of emotional maturity is incredibly rare, especially in men who've been through a lot, because it signals something deeper. You're not afraid to fail again. You're not stuck. You're evolving. And you're not bitter, which means you've healed. To a younger woman, that's like a warm fire in a cold world. You're not clinging to old wounds or projecting blame. You're just here, wiser, with a smile that says, I've seen storms, and I'm still dancing. 19. You're unexpectedly good at something niche, and you never brag about it. Maybe you play flamenco guitar. Maybe you carve chess pieces. Maybe you speak Japanese but haven't used it in years. Whatever it is, it's a skill that nobody expects, and you don't lead with it. It comes up later, casually, and when she sees it, her eyes light up. It's not the skill itself that's sexy. It's the fact that you never needed to show it off. It wasn't bait. It wasn't a trick. It was just there waiting, like a hidden level in a video game. And now she's wondering, what else is hidden in this man? That quiet competence, not in everything, but in something, adds depth. It makes her feel like you're a world she could keep exploring forever, and she'll want to. 20. You vanish, but stay on her mind with one unfinished sentence. Here's how legends are made. You don't end things cleanly. You don't say goodbye with a bow. You leave a mystery hanging in the air. Maybe it's a story you started but didn't finish. Maybe it's a compliment that hinted at something deeper. Maybe it's a glance, held 1 second too long, and then you go. No over-explaining, no chasing, just absence, but not emptiness. She feels you in the silence afterward. She replays that moment, the sentence you didn't finish, the story you didn't explain, the look you gave her that felt like a secret. You vanish, not because you're playing games, but because you can, because you don't need to chase. And that's what makes her want to follow. Up next, discover the signs she's scared that she loves you, or learn how to tell if she's flirting with you. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more.